बंगाल, शोनार बंगाल, महान बंगाल, विचित्र बंगाल। इसी बंगाल के हैं भुवन सोम, 16 आने खरे। बरसों बंगाल के बाहर रहने के बाद भी जिनका बंगालीपन नहीं गया, भुवन सोम।
Whereby they feel that by doing that they can reach a wider audience. In other words, they change the language of their films, which you are refusing to do in a way.
You said so-called new wave film.
Yeah.
Well, any film, to my mind, any film made in India which makes sense to me should be called a new wave film. You know, most of the films do not make much sense to me. You know, this is what it does to me. And what is your question?
No, my question is that the people have actually changed the language of their cinema in order to reach a wider audience, which you, in a way, are saying you want, but you're not willing to change your language to reach that audience.
Well, don't you think that the cinema, being to a large extent a technological performance, don't you realize and don't you see that the language of cinema has been growing at enormous pace? And the pace is much more rapid than any other arts. You know, even in painting, for instance, in music, in literature, the language the style has been changing, the language vocabulary has been changing, everything has been changing. For instance, think of the Victorian, the writers of the Victorian period, and think of the writers of the later period. Think of, for instance, the later period, the other writers, James Joyce, for instance. And so these are so different. But the language of cinema has been changing at very rapid pace. And this is what we have to catch up with, the spirit of the time. And after all, India is not outside this planet. And we are being inspired by so many things happening all over the world. And I can see that with the growth of science and technology, we are heading towards a common culture. We used to talk about, our predecessors used to talk about the Indianness. Even now they talk about the Indianness, about the cultural roots and all. But I think that with the growth of science and technology, taking a cue from what my son once said 29 years ago about lightning, and likening it to the 70mm screen. Well, I feel that we are talking the same language. We are talking the same language. We are living in a hybrid culture, all of us. And this is something which is superb for me, for you, for anybody else for that matter. Think of a British spectator. Well, and think of an Indian spectator. Think of a British filmmaker. Think of an Indian filmmaker. Well, I can see and think of. I can see that the physiognomies are different. You know, we speak different languages. Our food habits are different. Our outfits are different, and the landscapes we project may be very different. And on the top of it, the money that is employed in the film, the currency, we use national currencies to make Indian films. You make national currencies to make a British film. But that's all about it. But then in the ultimate analysis, what happens? You know, there is hardly anything typically British, there is hardly anything typically Indian, there is hardly anything which is typically German or American. So this is what I feel, that I'm talking in my language, I'm using the language of the cinema, which has been growing at very rapid pace, and I borrow it from others. I'm inspired by so many things that had been happening around me. For instance, when I used to watch the free cinema movement, free cinema in Great Britain, which was initiated by Lindsay Anderson, Tony Richardson, Carol Rice. I was enormously inspired, infinitely inspired by those films. So these, to some extent, there is always an interaction between me and these directors. There should always be an interaction between a filmmaker of any country with other countries.
But that's the point, that I think that Indian commercial filmmakers which are making these big budget films, which are successful, are also taking these changes into their films.
And I haven't, but talking about the commercial cinema, well, I don't want to use this word commercial because I also want to see that my films reach the wider people. The moment it reaches the wider people, it becomes a commercially viable proposition, isn't it so? You can rather say the usual formula-ridden films which far outnumber the right kind of films which I stand by. Okay? And this is the case everywhere. In England also, Lindsay Anderson, does he have a good market? I don't think he has. Or for that matter, Tony Richardson, who made one of the finest films. I remember Tom Jones, one of the greatest films I have seen coming from Great Britain. But then he had to go to Hollywood to be able to try his luck. But okay, that is what it is. And this is what has been happening everywhere. So the serious filmmakers have always very tough time, and I can wish all of us toughest time.
But I question this word serious because I think that what you're doing is really just being extremely elitist, right? And experimenting with things and not caring anything about what people are going through, because you're talking about social realities, but you're not even communicating with those people who are going through those social realities.
Well, that is a big problem. That is a big problem, and that is what
the problem the Hindi cinema is addressing.
Hindi cinema is also facing the same problem. Now, what is happening to them? The so-called formula-ridden films, these are becoming big flops as well. So you never know. You keep on taking chances, and you prosper or perish. That is something which you have to take. I have been making films for quite a long period, and I wouldn't tell you how many films I have made. I wouldn't tell you when did I start making films. I am like a woman who never wants to count her age after 25. So now, but I tell you that I have been continuing to make films, even though most of my films have been popular failures at the box office in India. So that is why I have developed a taste. I have found a sort of strategy for myself. It is very simple, that I have to see that the filmmaking is not an expensive proposition, because establishment is always there. The people who control the industry, film industry, whether in India or outside, they are always to tell you that the filmmaking is a very expensive proposition and it is our monopoly and nobody else's business. But our business is to see. When I say ours, I mean the people like me and like-minded people in Great Britain, like-minded people in Germany, France, and everywhere. Our job is to see that the filmmaking is not as expensive as the establishment thinks this to be. And the filmmaking is nobody's monopoly, it can be everybody's business. So that is how I have to make low-budget films. This is also integrated with my artistic, aesthetic approach to cinema. To make low-budget films, so that even if I get minority spectators here in India, I can get also minority spectators in Great Britain. I can get minority spectators elsewhere in the world. So taken together, I get quite a sizable minority spectators. And if I can circulate my films in such minority pockets, then my money comes back together with some profit. That will not allow me to buy a villa near Lake Geneva, but then that will be enough for me to keep my body and soul together and to be able to operate my brain reasonably well.
But can I come back? You seem to be saying
glasses.
The song and dance, you seem to have a kind of developed an aversion, if I can say that, to the song and dance film.
Now, song and dance, for instance, if you can't integrate it with the film, for instance, a girl and a boy, they meet. And what can be done by a single kiss, which doesn't take for more than for the preparation, to prepare for escape, for a kiss, you need, say, about 100 feet. But here, you need to have a song, and that will take about 5 minutes, which means about 600 feet or something like this. Why should you waste this film on something?
I don't agree with
Am I clear?
No, because I think that you're being very prosaic and literal. Well, that is very poetic to do it that.
Which one?
To do it in a song and dance. Then, I mean,
The way they sing, you call it poetic. I call it acrobatics. You know, they sing, dance, they jump, and they do all sorts of things. Finally, they do everything except kiss. And then finally they have to go to two birds just trying to kiss each other. That's what do they do. Or the camera goes away to some other, a painting somewhere, a sculpture, an erotic sculpture or something, indicating that they are making love. It's stupid. This is all stupid nonsense, I feel. And you have to go in for a dance, for a song, and this and all this, just to impress upon the audience that they are in love. This makes no sense to me, absolutely no sense to me. It doesn't touch me at all.
if you had your way, would you stop people from making this kind of stuff?
I don't think it does anybody. I don't think so.
Do you think it prevents people from understanding reality?
I have made films where, you know, one is getting attached, the girl is getting attached to a boy. You know, say, I didn't need any song. Do they do that in reality? Do they sing? Do they dance? Do they do like this? Do they keep on changing their costumes all the time? In every shot, you find one costume and then another, then another, then another, something like this.
But what's that got to do with, I mean, that's an expression, that's an artistic expression of what
Is it an artistic
they are
expression?
feeling.
This is, you know, I know.
Naturalistic.
In other way, this is, this is a way, this is, you know, advertising for costumes. So many, India has so many costumes. A woman has, keeps on changing dresses all the time. Is it artistic? Does it have anything? Is it, you know, does it grow out of any artistic stimulant? I don't think so. I don't think so. They just want to be different. They just want to be sensational, that's all.
So what do you think the role of this kind of cinema has been in social and political
Which one?
terms? The song and dance.
Songs and dances.
What social?
Songs and dances, if they are very much needed in the film, well, they can come. But then these are not needed at all. This is just to please the audiences.
No, I'm asking a different
It is
question.
just to please the gross audiences, that's all.
No, what I'm saying is that has this kind of cinema, in your opinion, has a bad influence on the audience in terms of the social and political change that you are looking for?
Well, I won't say, but look at the world cinema. Do they have to be in love, to grow intimacy between a man and a woman? Do they go in for songs and dances? Do they have to do that? They are human beings as much as we are, or we are human beings as much as they are. So if you talk about the human relationship, the relationship between a man and a woman, do they have to go in for dances? Now here are the songs. Here, for instance, if there is a you know, when there is a breakup, for instance, the relationship breaks between the husband and wife. Then again you will see the wife, the woman, using a black sari, she starts singing. Is it necessary? And does it happen in reality? That a woman starts singing, wearing a black sari? This is what happens in Indian, this cinema you are talking about.
No, I'm asking you a different...
Talking about the tragedy, well, they do like this.
No,
And what do you ask me?
No, what I want to ask you is, do you think that this cinema, which is song and dance, which is not realistic, does it have a bad impact on the social environment, social and political, from the point of view that does it allow things to change, or is it trying to just sell dreams?
Well, I'm not a moralist. I'm not a moralist. I don't care how a film which I do not like casts a bad shadow on the social life. That is not my fault. I do not want to get into it. I don't react at all. Only when I react to a film, adversely or positively, if I react negatively or positively, if I react to a film, I feel that I have spent my time very well in the theatre. But these are the films where I don't react at all.